You know, there's something I've noticed in all my years of studying mythology and the human spirit. Every culture, every society, every civilization has what I call a script. It's the story that the society tells about what life is supposed to be. It's the narrative that says, this is how you should live. This is what you should value. This is what success looks like. This is what a good life is. And most people, the vast majority of people, they accept this script without question. They follow it dutifully. They try to live up to its expectations. They measure themselves against its standards. They spend their entire lives performing a role that was written for them before they were even born. But then there are those who wake up. Those who, at some point in their journey, stop and say, wait a minute. This script I've been following, this story I've been living, is this really my story? Is this really my life? Or am I just acting out someone else's idea of what my life should be? These are the ones who refuse society's script. And they don't refuse it because they're rebellious or contrarian or trying to be difficult. They refuse it because they've discovered something deeper, something more authentic, something more true. They've discovered their own myth. They've heard their own call. They've found their own path. Today, I want to share with you 5 reasons why the spiritually awake refuse society's script. Because if you understand these reasons, if you really grasp what's at stake here, you'll have the courage to question your own script. You'll have the permission to step off the well-worn path and find your own way. You'll understand that refusing society's script is not a rejection of life but an embrace of it, a commitment to living your life instead of the life that was prescribed for you. The first reason, society's script is based on fear, not love. The first and most fundamental reason the awakened ones refuse society's script is because they've recognized that the script is based on fear, not love. And once you see this, once you really understand it, you cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to following the script with the same unconsciousness you had before. Let me explain what I mean. Look at the typical script that society offers. It goes something like this. Get a good education so you can get a good job. Get a good job so you can make good money. Make good money so you can buy a house, a car, all the things that signify success. Get married, have children, provide for your family. Work hard, climb the ladder, accumulate more. Save for retirement. And then, when you're old and tired, you can finally relax and enjoy life. Now, on the surface, there's nothing wrong with any of these things. Education is valuable. Work can be meaningful. Family can be beautiful. Security has its place. But here's what you must understand. The script isn't really about these things. The script is about fear. The script says, get educated or you'll be left behind. Get a good job or you'll be worthless. Make money or you'll be insecure. Buy things or you won't be respected. Conform or you'll be rejected. Keep up with everyone else or you'll be a failure. The script is driven by fear of not being enough, fear of not having enough, fear of being rejected, fear of being left out, fear of missing out, fear of falling behind. And this fear is never satisfied. No matter how much you achieve according to the script, the fear remains. You get the degree but now you need the job. You get the job but now you need the promotion. You get the promotion but now you need more money. You get more money but now you need a bigger house. It never ends. The script keeps you running on a treadmill of fear-driven achievement that never actually arrives at peace, at satisfaction, at genuine fulfillment. The awakened person sees through this. They recognize that a life driven by fear is not really life at all. It's survival. It's defense. It's constant anxiety dressed up as ambition. And they say, no. I will not live my one precious life in constant fear. I will not spend my days running from imagined threats and chasing illusory securities. Instead, they choose to live from love. Not love in the sentimental sense, but love in the deeper sense of connection, of passion, of following what genuinely calls to them, of doing what brings them alive. This is what I mean when I say, follow your bliss. I'm not talking about hedonism or selfishness. I'm talking about following what genuinely moves you, what makes you feel connected to the source of life itself. When you follow your bliss, when you live from love instead of fear, the script falls away naturally. Because the script can only maintain its hold on you through fear. When you're no longer afraid, when you're willing to risk security for authenticity, when you're willing to face rejection for the sake of being true to yourself, the script has no power over you. I remember a student once asked me, but Joseph, isn't it irresponsible to abandon the script? Don't we have obligations? Don't we need security? And I said, of course we have obligations. Of course we need to eat and have shelter. But the question is, are you fulfilling genuine obligations or are you serving fear? Are you creating real security or are you chasing an illusion of control that will never be satisfied? The awakened person understands the difference. They take care of practical necessities, yes. But they don't let the script define their entire life. They don't sacrifice their soul, their authenticity, their genuine calling on the altar of society's fear-based expectations. This is the first and most important reason for refusing the script. Because once you recognize that it's based on fear, once you taste the freedom of living from love instead, you can never go back. The script loses its power. And you begin to write your own story, one based not on what you fear but on what you love, not on what society expects but on what your soul calls you toward. The second reason, the script denies your uniqueness. The second reason the awakened refuse society script is that the script is one size fits all, and they've discovered that they don't fit. More importantly, they've discovered that no one truly fits. Each person is unique with their own gifts, their own calling, their own path. And the script, by its very nature, denies this uniqueness. Think about it. Society's script is designed for the collective, for the masses, for the generic person. It's built on the assumption that everyone should want the same things, value the same things, pursue the same goals. It says, here's the template for a successful life. Follow it and you'll be fine. But what if you're not the template? What if your gifts don't fit into the standard categories? What if your passions don't align with what the script values? What if your calling takes you in a direction that the script doesn't recognize or approve of? This is the dilemma of every person who begins to wake up. You start to feel the tension between who you really are and who the script says you should be. You start to notice that when you follow the script, you feel dead inside, like you're wearing someone else's clothes, like you're living someone else's life. But when you do what genuinely calls to you, even if it doesn't fit the script, you feel alive, you feel authentic, you feel like yourself. The awakened person honors this feeling. They recognize that the aliveness, the authenticity, the sense of being truly themselves, this is the compass they should follow, not the script. They understand what Nietzsche meant when he said, become who you are. Not who society wants you to be. Not who your parents hoped you'd be. Not who the culture says you should be. But who you actually are in your deepest nature, in your most authentic being. This is why every hero's journey, every genuine myth, involves the hero leaving the village, leaving the known world, striking out on their own path. Because you cannot discover who you really are while you're still conforming to the collective expectations. You cannot find your unique gifts while you're still trying to be like everyone else. You cannot hear your individual calling while you're still listening exclusively to the voice of society. The script wants you to be a copy, a replica, one more person following the same path as everyone else. But the awakened person knows they're an original. They know they have something unique to contribute, something that only they can bring, something that will never exist if they don't express it. I've seen this again and again in the lives of the great artists, the great innovators, the great spiritual teachers. They all refused to fit into society's categories. They all struck out on their own path. And they all faced tremendous pressure to conform, to be normal, to follow the script. Van Gogh was told to be a practical man, to get a normal job. He refused and gave us some of the most beautiful paintings in human history. Emily Dickinson was expected to be a conventional woman of her time. She refused and gave us poetry of extraordinary depth. Buddha was expected to be a prince and eventually a king. He refused and gave us one of the world's great spiritual teachings. In every case, the gift they had to offer the world could only emerge when they refused the script. If they had conformed, if they had followed society's expectations, the world would have lost something precious and irreplaceable. And here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't just true of the famous, the exceptional, the obviously gifted. It's true of everyone. Every single person has something unique to contribute. Every person has their own myth, their own journey, their own calling. But most people never discover it because they never refuse the script. They spend their entire lives trying to fit in, trying to be normal, trying to meet expectations, and they die without ever knowing who they really were. The awakened person refuses to let this happen. They say, I would rather be authentic and rejected than conformist and accepted. I would rather be true to myself and struggle than false to myself and succeed. I would rather live my own myth, even if it's difficult, than live society's script, even if it's comfortable. This doesn't mean they're selfish or narcissistic. On the contrary, by being true to themselves, by expressing their unique gifts, they give the world something it desperately needs. They give the world originality, authenticity, genuine creativity. They show others that it's possible to be yourself. They give permission by their example for others to refuse the script and discover their own path. This is the second reason for refusing society's script. Because you are not generic. You are not one size fits all. You are absolutely unique, and you have something to contribute that only you can contribute. But you'll never discover what that is if you spend your life trying to fit into a script that was never written for the unique person you are. The third reason, the script leads to a second-hand life. The third reason the Awakened refuse society's script is perhaps the most poignant. They refuse it because they've realized that following the script means living a second-hand life. It means living someone else's idea of what life should be instead of discovering life directly for yourself. Let me explain what I mean by a second-hand life. When you follow society's script, you're not actually living. You're performing. You're acting out a role. You're following instructions. It's like being an actor in a play where you didn't write the script, you didn't choose the role, you don't even know who wrote the play or why. You're just reciting lines and hitting marks and hoping you do it well enough to get approval. This creates a strange kind of alienation from your own life. You go through the motions, you do what you're supposed to do, but there's a sense that you're not really there. You're not really present. You're not really living your life, you're just managing it, administering it, getting through it according to the prescribed program. I've talked to countless people who wake up at 40 or 50 or 60 and say, "I've been successful according to all the standards. I did everything right. I followed the script perfectly. But I feel like I've been asleep. I feel like I haven't really lived. I feel like I've been watching my life happen rather than actually living it." This is the tragedy of the scripted life. You can follow it perfectly, you can succeed by all its measures and still arrive at the end feeling like you missed something essential. Because you did miss something essential. You missed your own direct experience of life. You missed the adventure of discovering who you are and what life means to you. The awakened person refuses to let this happen. They insist on first-hand experience. They insist on discovering life for themselves, not accepting someone else's conclusions about what life is or should be. They want to taste life directly, not hear about how it's supposed to taste. They want to discover meaning themselves, not adopt someone else's ready-made meanings. This is what I mean when I talk about the hero's journey. The hero leaves the village of collective beliefs and second-hand knowledge. They venture into unknown territory. They face challenges that have no script, no instructions, no guaranteed outcomes. And through this direct engagement with life, through this first-hand experience, they discover what's real for them. They discover their own truth, not the tribe's truth. This is scary, of course. Second-hand living is safe. The script gives you instructions. It tells you what to do at each stage of life. It gives you benchmarks to measure yourself against. It provides a ready-made identity and a pre-packaged meaning. You don't have to figure anything out for yourself. You just follow the program. But this safety comes at an enormous cost. The cost is your aliveness. The cost is your authenticity. The cost is your direct connection to the mystery and wonder of existence. You trade the adventure of discovery for the security of the known. You trade the richness of first-hand experience for the poverty of second-hand instruction. I think of Plato's cave allegory. Most people are like the prisoners in the cave, watching shadows on the wall and thinking those shadows are reality. They're living a second-hand life, experiencing only the reflected, projected version of reality that society shows them. The awakened person is like the one who breaks free from the chains, turns around and sees the fire casting the shadows. And then goes further, climbs out of the cave entirely and sees the sun, sees reality directly, firsthand, without intermediary. Once you've seen the sun, once you've experienced life directly, you cannot go back to watching shadows and thinking that's all there is. You cannot go back to the second-hand life. The script, with all its prescriptions and expectations, reveals itself as just shadows on a wall, projections and constructions, not reality itself. This is why the awakened refuse the script. Not because they're against structure or guidance or wisdom from others, but because they insist on direct experience. They insist on discovering for themselves what's true. They refuse to live their entire lives based on someone else's map, someone else's conclusions, someone else's idea of what life should be. They want the real thing. The first-hand encounter. The direct experience. And this means leaving the script behind and venturing into unknown territory, into the wilderness where there are no paths, no signs, no guarantees. It means trusting your own experience, your own intuition, your own direct perception more than you trust society's prescriptions. Is this difficult? Yes. Is it uncertain? Yes. Is it risky? Yes. But it's also the only way to truly live. The only way to have a first-hand life instead of a second-hand existence. The only way to arrive at the end of your days and know that you really lived, that you really experienced, that you really discovered what life means to you. This is the third reason for refusing society's script. Because you deserve better than a second-hand life. You deserve to live directly, to experience directly, to discover directly. And the script, no matter how well-intentioned, no matter how successful it might make you appear, will always keep you one step removed from the real thing. The fourth reason, the script serves the system, not the soul. The fourth reason the awakened refuse society's script is that they've recognized something crucial. The script is designed to serve the system, not your soul. It's designed to produce productive citizens, reliable workers, predictable consumers. It's not designed to help you become who you really are or to help you fulfill your deepest purpose. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's not about evil people deliberately trying to control you. It's simply how social systems work. Every society needs its members to fulfill certain roles, to do certain jobs, to maintain certain structures. And so every society creates a script that channels people toward those roles, those jobs, those structures. The script says, get an education. But what kind of education? The kind that prepares you for the job market, that makes you useful to the economy, that fits you into the existing system. Not necessarily the kind that helps you discover who you are or what you're here to do. The script says, get a job. But what kind of job? One that pays well, that provides security, that's respectable in the eyes of society. Not necessarily one that expresses your gifts or serves your calling or brings you genuine fulfillment. The script says, buy things. Why? Because the economy needs consumers. The system needs you to keep buying, keep consuming, keep participating in the cycle of production and consumption. Not because these things will actually make you happy or fulfilled. The script says, be normal. Fit in. Don't make waves. Why? Because the system runs more smoothly when people are predictable, when they follow the established patterns, when they don't question or challenge or do things differently. Do you see the pattern? The script is designed to produce the kind of people the system needs, not the kind of people who are fully alive, fully authentic, fully themselves. And most people never question this. They assume that what's good for the system must be good for them. They assume that if they follow the script, they'll be happy and fulfilled. But the awakened person has discovered otherwise. They've discovered that serving the system and serving the soul are often two very different things. What the system needs from you and what your soul calls you toward are frequently in conflict. Your soul might call you to be an artist, but the system needs you to be an accountant. Your soul might call you to explore and wander, but the system needs you to stay in one place and be reliable. Your soul might call you to question and challenge, but the system needs you to conform and comply. And here's what the awakened person understands. When there's a conflict between the system's needs and the soul's calling, you have to choose the soul. Not because the system is evil, but because the soul is you. The soul is your deepest truth, your authentic nature, your genuine purpose. And if you betray that in order to serve the system, you betray yourself. This is what I mean when I say, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. Not who the system needs you to be. Not who society wants you to be. But who you actually are in your deepest nature, in your truest essence. Now, this doesn't mean you can't participate in society. It doesn't mean you can't have a job or pay taxes or fulfill basic responsibilities. The awakened person understands that you can participate in the system without being consumed by it. You can play a role without losing yourself in the role. You can fulfill responsibilities without betraying your soul. The key is to maintain your center, to remember who you really are, to keep your soul's calling as your primary allegiance. You participate in the system as needed, but you don't let the system define you. You use the system's resources as appropriate, but you don't let the system's values become your values. This is a delicate dance. It requires consciousness. It requires constant vigilance. Because the system is always pulling you toward its agenda, always trying to convince you that its priorities should be your priorities, always trying to get you to forget your soul in service of its needs. I think of the Buddha, born a prince, heir to a kingdom. The system had a script all laid out for him. He was supposed to become a great king, to rule his people, to maintain and expand the kingdom. That was his role, his duty, his prescribed path. But his soul called him in a different direction. His soul called him to renounce the palace, to seek enlightenment, to become a spiritual teacher. He could have followed the script. He could have been a good king. He could have served the system well. But he would have betrayed his soul. He would have missed his true calling. He would have denied the world the gift he was uniquely positioned to give. So he refused the script. He left the palace. He followed his soul's calling instead of the system's needs. And because he did, he became the Buddha. He fulfilled his true purpose. He gave the world something far more valuable than another king. This is what the awakened person does. They assess every aspect of the script, every expectation of the system, and they ask, does this serve my soul? Does this help me become who I really am? Does this support my true calling? And if the answer is no, they refuse. They find another way. They write their own script. This is the fourth reason for refusing society's script. Because the script is designed to serve the system, not your soul. And if you must choose between the two, and eventually you must choose the soul. Choose authenticity over approval. Choose calling over conformity. Choose being who you are over being who the system needs you to be. The fifth reason, the script denies the mystery. And now we come to the fifth and perhaps most profound reason the awakened refuse society's script. They refuse it because the script is based on the assumption that life can be figured out, planned, controlled, managed. And they've discovered that this assumption is false. Life is not a problem to be solved. Life is a mystery to be lived. The script says, here's how life works. Here are the rules. Follow these steps and you'll get these results. Plan your life carefully and you can control the outcome. It treats life as if it were a machine, as if it were predictable and controllable, as if you could guarantee certain results by following certain procedures. But anyone who's really lived, anyone who's really paid attention, knows this isn't true. Life is not predictable. Life is not controllable. Life is fundamentally mysterious. No matter how carefully you plan, life has a way of surprising you, of taking you in directions you never expected, of presenting you with situations your script never accounted for. The awakened person doesn't see this unpredictability as a problem. They see it as the very nature of life. They understand that life is not a machine to be managed but a great adventure to be experienced. They understand that the uncertainty, the unpredictability, the mystery of life is not a bug, it's a feature. It's what makes life alive. Think about the hero's journey again. The hero doesn't have a script. They have a call, yes. They have a direction perhaps. But they don't know what they'll encounter along the way. They don't know what challenges they'll face. They don't know how it will all turn out. The journey is into the unknown. And it's precisely this unknown quality that makes it a real adventure, a real journey, a real life. If the hero had a script, if they knew exactly what would happen at each stage, if everything was planned and predictable, there would be no journey. There would be no growth. There would be no discovery. There would be no transformation. The hero would simply be following instructions, going through predetermined motions, playing out a pre-written story. But real life is not like that. Real life is open-ended. Real life is full of surprises. Real life is mysterious. And the awakened person embraces this mystery instead of trying to eliminate it. They understand what Rilke meant when he advised us to love the questions and to live the questions. They understand that life is not about finding all the answers and eliminating all uncertainty. It's about staying open to the mystery, staying present to the unknown, staying available for the unexpected. This is why the script ultimately fails everyone who follows it. Because no script can account for the full mystery of life. No plan can anticipate all possibilities. No set of instructions can prepare you for every situation. Life is too vast, too complex, too mysterious to be captured in a script. And when the script inevitably fails, when life throws you something the script didn't prepare you for, you have two choices. You can panic, you can feel like you've done something wrong, you can try desperately to get back on script. Or you can recognize that the script was always insufficient, was always too small for the vastness of life, and you can let it go. You can step into the mystery. You can embrace the unknown. You can live the adventure. The awakened person has made this second choice. They've let go of the illusion that life can be controlled, that the future can be guaranteed, that following a script will protect them from uncertainty. Instead, they've learned to dance with the mystery. They've learned to say yes to life even when they don't know where it's going. They've learned to trust the journey even when they can't see the destination. This requires tremendous courage. Because the script, for all its limitations, provides a kind of psychological security. It gives you the feeling that you know what you're doing, that you have control, that you can manage life. Letting go of the script means letting go of that security. It means admitting that you don't know, that you can't control, that you're fundamentally at the mercy of forces much larger than yourself. But here's what the awakened person discovers. This admission, this surrender to the mystery, this letting go of control, it's not a weakness. It's a strength. It's not a defeat. It's a liberation. Because when you stop trying to control life, when you stop trying to force it into your script, you become available for life as it actually is. You become open to possibilities you never imagined. You become capable of experiencing the wonder, the beauty, the magic that's always present but that the script followers are too busy managing to notice. I think of the Taoist concept of Wu Wei, which is often translated as non-action, but is better understood as action in harmony with the Tao, action in harmony with the way things actually are rather than the way you think they should be. The script is the opposite of Wu Wei. The script is trying to force life into a predetermined pattern. Wu Wei is flowing with life's pattern, whatever it turns out to be. The awakened person lives with Wu Wei. They have intentions, yes. They take action, yes. But they hold their plans lightly. They remain open to change. They stay flexible, adaptable, responsive to what's actually happening rather than rigidly attached to what they think should happen. This is living in harmony with the mystery. This is accepting that life is fundamentally unknowable, fundamentally beyond your control, fundamentally mysterious. And instead of seeing this as a problem, seeing it as the very ground of wonder, of awe, of the sacred dimension of existence. When you let go of the script, when you surrender to the mystery, life becomes magical again. It becomes what it was when you were a child, before you learned all the scripts and rules and expectations. It becomes fresh, immediate, surprising, alive. Every day becomes an adventure because you're not following a predetermined path. Every moment becomes precious because you're not taking anything for granted. Every experience becomes meaningful because you're not judging it against some script-based expectation of what should be happening. This is the fifth reason for refusing society's script. Because the script denies the mystery. It tries to reduce life to a set of instructions, a series of steps, a predictable program. But life is not reducible. Life is vast, complex, unpredictable, mysterious. And the only way to really live is to embrace that mystery, to dance with it, to say yes to it, to let it take you where it will. The awakened person has learned to do this. They've learned to live without a script. They've learned to trust the journey even when they don't know the destination. They've learned to love the questions even when they don't have the answers. They've learned to embrace the mystery even though, especially because, it cannot be controlled. The hero's path, writing your own myth. So there you have it. 5 reasons why the spiritually awake refuse society's script. They refuse it because it's based on fear rather than love. They refuse it because it denies their uniqueness. They refuse it because it leads to a second-hand life. They refuse it because it serves the system rather than the soul. And they refuse it because it denies the mystery of existence. These are not small reasons. These are profound, life-altering recognitions. And once you see them, once you really understand them, you cannot unsee them. You cannot go back to following the script with the same unconsciousness you had before. The script loses its power over you. And you find yourself at a threshold, a crossroads, a moment of decision. You can try to go back to the script. Many people do. They catch glimpses of these truths, but the glimpses are too threatening, too unsettling, too demanding. So they close their eyes, they put their heads down, they go back to the script. Better the devil you know, they say. Better the safety of the prescribed path than the uncertainty of the unknown. Or you can cross the threshold. You can refuse the script. You can answer the call to adventure. You can begin the hero's journey of discovering your own myth, living your own story, following your own path. This is what I've been inviting people to do my entire life. Not to reject society entirely. Not to become irresponsible or selfish or anarchistic. But to take responsibility for your own life. To discover your own calling. To follow your own bliss. To write your own myth instead of living out someone else's story. This is not easy. The script has tremendous momentum behind it. Your family believes in the script. Your friends are following the script. The entire culture reinforces the script at every turn. To refuse it is to risk rejection, judgment, misunderstanding. It's to risk failure, at least by the script's standards. It's to risk uncertainty because you're venturing into unknown territory where there are no guarantees. But here's what I want you to understand. The risk of following your own path is nothing compared to the risk of following someone else's. The risk of writing your own myth is nothing compared to the certainty of living someone else's story. The risk of uncertainty is nothing compared to the tragedy of a life unlived. Because at the end of your days, when you look back on your life, the question won't be, did I follow the script? Did I meet society's expectations? Did I do what everyone thought I should do? The question will be, did I really live? Did I discover who I was? Did I express my unique gifts? Did I follow what called to me? Did I have the courage to be myself? And if you've spent your entire life following society's script, the answer to those questions will be no. You'll have been successful, perhaps, by the script's measures. But you'll know in your deepest heart that you never really lived your own life. You never really discovered your own myth. You never really became who you were meant to be. The awakened person refuses to let this happen. They choose the uncertainty of the hero's path over the security of the scripted life. They choose authenticity over approval. They choose aliveness over safety. They choose the risk of being themselves over the guarantee of being accepted. And what do they find on this path? They find that the uncertainty is actually freedom. They find that the risk is actually aliveness. They find that the mystery is actually sacred. They find that letting go of society's script allows them to discover their own myth, their own calling, their own unique way of participating in the great adventure of existence. They find their tribe, not the tribe they were born into but the tribe of fellow seekers, fellow adventurers, fellow mythmakers. They find their work, not the work the system assigned them but the work they were born to do. They find their joy, not the happiness the script promised them but the deep bliss that comes from living authentically, from expressing their gifts, from following their calling. Most importantly, they find themselves. Not the self that society constructed for them but their true self, their authentic nature, their real face. And in finding themselves, they find their place in the great mythological story of human existence. They discover that they're not just playing a role in someone else's script. They're living their own myth, making their own story, participating creatively in the ongoing creation of reality itself. This is what's available to you if you have the courage to refuse society's script. Not a life of rebellion for rebellion's sake. Not a life of selfishness or irresponsibility. But a life of authenticity, of aliveness, of genuine participation in the mystery of existence. The script will always be there, offering you its false securities and hollow promises. But so will the call to adventure, inviting you to your own hero's journey, beckoning you toward your own unique myth. Which will you choose? I hope you'll choose the adventure. I hope you'll refuse the script. I hope you'll have the courage to discover who you really are and what you're really here to do. Because the world doesn't need more people following the script. The world needs people who are truly alive, truly authentic, truly themselves. The world needs heroes who've had the courage to refuse society's story and live their own. This is your invitation. This is your call. The adventure awaits. The only question is, will you answer?